In previous tutorials we've been using the example, surveys and support files in the surveys test data folder, and within that folder there is another folder called PDF. PDF stands for Plan Description File. The files contained within it are not Acrobat PDF files. They are text files and they stand for Plan Description File. Within that folder there are a number of plan description files, and the one we're going to concentrate on during this tutorial is called A3_A4.pdf. The other files are mostly descriptive of the paper size that you wish to plot to. Please also have a look at the README because this explains what each plan description file contains. We'll start by selecting Plot Plan, and we're going to browse for the plan description file in Surveys, Test Data, PDF, and the one we want is A3_A4 PDF. If you select Edit at this point, you will then be able to see the contents of this plan description file. And as you will see, it's a text file. Each line begins with a command. Now anything that begins with the word comment is just a note and is ignored by LSS. Some commands are just single words, and other commands have further information fields after them, and if they do then they're separated by commas. In this case the first one is remark. That brings up a message, and whatever is typed in here will be the content of that message. It now asks us whether we want to plot to A3 or A4, and we move on to this section here. Now each of these commands is listed in the LSS help documentation, and if you hit the help button it will explain the various dialogues. But the important link is this one here, which is to the plan description file. And the line we're on at the moment starts with the word if. It explains how the if, else, end loops work. For example, in this case it says if the user selects A3, then apply these paper sizes. If they select A4, then select these paper sizes. You can have as many of those as you like. As soon as the user has selected their required paper size, then that becomes %W as a variable, if you will. For example, if we've selected A3, if we want titles at the side, then it chooses these paper limits, which is coordinates 0, 0, which is the bottom left hand corner, and then %W is the full width, which for A3 is 40 centimeters minus 4.5 centimeters, so we've got a 4.5 centimeter border down the right hand side, and the full height, which is %W, which is 25.5 centimeters high. I'm not going to go into all of the details here, but I'm just going to flag up a few options as we see them during this dialogue. So do we want to draw a mapping backdrop? Now what it's waiting for is an affirmative answer to any of these questions, and as soon as it gets one then it will ask us for the paper size. So let's go down to this one, which is do I want to show height bands and height ranges. So we're all the way down to here now. As soon as I say yes, it knows it now wants to plot something, and it will prompt us for the location for the sheet. So there's the A3 sheet at a scale of 1 to 200, and it's got the 1 to 200 scale from the configured ETM display. And there are a variety of options available to us. We can locate the position of the sheet, and the sort of up arrow inside that rectangle shows us the top of the sheet. So if we just want to plot one sheet, then we can just drop it there, and if we want to fit it onto a single page, we can just change the scale, zoom out. Now that's all going to fit now onto a single page. Rotation allows us to rotate the sheet. And for example, if we want to plot it at 1 to 100, then it isn't going to fit onto a single sheet. So at this point we can say, well, let's increase the number of rows and the number of columns. Locate, and that will now give us the overall shape. We can then have an overlap in centimeters. So that's how we plot multiple sheets with overlaps. If I change it 1 to 1000, have 1 by 1, set the orientation as 0. Okay, so there you are. The current DTM display scale is 1 to 200, but I'm now asking it to plot to 1 to 1000. That may have serious consequences in terms of the size of text. We may have set the level text and general text up so that it looks right at 1 to 200. Now we're going to plot to 1 to 1000. Because the text is fixed to centimeters on the final plot, it's going to get 5 times bigger than we were expecting it to. So we can maintain the legend sizes, or we can reduce everything to 1/5 of its original size in order that everything gets smaller now with the survey. Or we can change it to a specific multiplication. So we may not want it to go to 1/5, but we might want it to go to 0.4. So there are a whole load of options available to us within that screen. So this is all happening in the background and between each of these individual commands. It now asks us, do we want surface hatching? If I say yes, and it now asks me for the contour interval that I want. Do I want stations if there are any in there? If so, do I want the names and the levels next to them? And I'm working my way down this document, so there are quite a lot of questions here. Some of the PDFs in the test data folder are very simple and there's just a few clicks required, but this one is one of the most complex ones. I want to show the detail together with any turned on levels. I want to show annotation. I want a 50-meter grid. I want a standard north point. I don't want to overdraw another survey. I don't want to over display the position of section description files. This isn't the section plots themselves, this is the planimetric position of the sections. You can choose a logo, and at this point it's asking us where do we want to send the plot to. Well, if we say to Adobe Acrobat and hit Configure, it has automatically taken the paper size from the selection in the plan description file, so it will always plot to the correct paper size. You can choose a title. You can also choose a specific plan description file name, and whether you want to plot it landscape or portrait, and the option to close the document after we've printed this page. If we don't close the document, it will allow us to keep going into various reports and plots, and it will just keep that Acrobat document open until we choose to close it. But if we say close after output, and then it will prompt us for the sheet specific information, such as the client name, the job name, and it's using these lines here to prompt us for this information: a drawing title, drawing number, and a revision. Go to next, and there you see the plot opened up inside Adobe Acrobat. If you want to save away the answers to the prompts that you've just been requested within this particular plot session, then we can save away this as a new plan description file. Which means that next time we can go to the current survey folder, and there is a plan description file in there. Now this will be a cut down version of the one we've just worked on, because it won't have all of the questions. It will assume the answers we gave last time are the ones we want this time. So all it will do is just prompt us to go ahead, and there you go. So there are no questions this time, it's just gone through the same process as before. Description. There's a lot more to know about plan description files and plotting plans in LSS. Please have a look through the help documentation and also the various commands and settings that are available to you within the PDF files.